Hello, guys. I'm so excited to see all of you guys joining us here today for our 10 Steps to Mental Health program. We have a very special guest today. We have Officer Megan here with us today, coming here to bless us with some information on online safety as well as cyberbullying prevention. We're truly honored to have Officer Megan, and get started whenever you want.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation. I know everybody's either coming from school or coming home from work. So again, thank you for inviting me in. And I will be honest with you, it's all about the teamwork. So just to give a little bit about myself, I've been a police officer for 21 years. In that time frame, I have worked in the public response unit, in the community response unit, and did some investigations in the family violence unit and the youth bureau. I know some people may still have their mics on, so if you just want to double check and make sure they're on mute, that's fine. I will definitely be trying to monitor the chat. I know Sakita's going to do the same, and we will follow up with questions at the end. And I will leave my email in case there are questions that you might have for later. And if I don't have the answer, I will definitely find out for you. And I will leave you with some resources, and I will email them too, so people will have them. So with that being said, I'm going to attempt to get started. Hopefully you can see my screen here, and I don't know if people want to make sure if it's muted or not. That would be great. I know sometimes it can be a little bit here hesitant. So I think everybody can see my screen. I know you'll let me know if not. So that's who I am. I have to warn you, I think I'm kind of funny. I laugh at my own jokes, but you know, that's what I do as a mom, as an aunt, as a caregiver. Like I said, I appreciate us all coming here, and for the youth there as well. These are good conversations to have with your guardians, aka the people who take care of you, whether it's mom, dad, aunt, uncle, your trusted adult, right? And that's an important word to remember as well. As guardians, as caregivers, as protectors, we all have an obligation, not just legally, but ethically as well. And people forget, you know, the Child and Youth Family Services Act, there is that requirement that if we see a child or a youth in need, we are obligated to report it. You can also do that anonymously as well if you're not too sure, whether it's through Crime Stoppers or through Children's Aid. And I will leave that information with you in the future as well. Another thing I think we have to remember, youth who are listening, looking at your trusted adults right now, believe it or not, there are adults like myself who actually did not grow up with the internet. That's right, we didn't even have a cell phone. This thing here was my first real handheld game. So when we ask questions about a game you're playing or an app you're downloading, it's one, because we might not know what you're talking about, and two, it's also kind of our job to find out what you're on. Because at the end of the day, it's not because we don't trust you, it's because we don't trust what we don't know or who we don't know and can't see. And it's the priority part of your safety that is the key, right? So being mindful, you're growing up with the internet and all these different technology, whereas your trusted adult may not have. So, you know, be a little patient sometimes when we ask those questions and help us out. And that's where the key of communication comes into play as well, right? Having the time to say, you know, what is this? And I know it sounds kind of silly, but some adults out there don't know what Instagram really is all about, or TikTok, right? Asking those questions. And, you know, trusted adults, guardians, parents out there, this is the time where we need to stop and listen. This is our time to also learn and engage with our youth about what they are into, because at the end of the day, this is their main form of communication as well. And we also need to be on board and to understand it so that we can navigate and keep them safe too. And that's where, just like we teach our children manners, we also have to do the same when they are communicating online as well. Instead of etiquette, it could be called netiquette, hence the pun on words for the internet. You know, it's also having the conversation about what is appropriate and what isn't. You know, reminding them there's certain sites you do not want them to be on because it's not age appropriate, right? Also checking in and having those parental controls, understanding too that you can have a contract as well in regards to cyber safety. Oh, I think somebody's not on mute. So if you could just make sure you're on mute, that would be fabulous. And also just knowing, you know, reminding your child, your youth, that you are there to help them. You might not know all the answers, but together you will find them. Right. And those are good conversations to have. And usually, you know, trusted adults listening, it's usually a time where you're ready to get out to work, or you're just coming in from a long day at work. And then all of a sudden you see your child and they want to have a conversation. That's what I call a very small window of opportunity. And as trusted adults and guardians, we need to stop what we are doing, and all focus is on your young person, on your child, because that window of opportunity may close. And as you know, somebody who had done investigations in the past and listening to children, they would sometimes tell me, I don't want to burden mom or dad. They have so much going on in their life. And to hear that as a caring adult too, that kind of broke my heart. And I took that also as a parent or as an aunt and a caregiver. And I thought, when my child says, I need to talk to you, my focus, everything else can wait. And my focus is now there. So it's a reminder to all of us to know we have to be all ears when our child says they need us and they need us to listen, right? Another thing too that it's important to know is trusting your gut. We've heard about instinct. We've heard about, you know, going with your gut. And we also hear about the super comic Spider-Man, right? And the kids can relate to this as well. So can we as adults. We had him as a comic back in the day. And it's about spidey senses. That's exactly what instinct is. We are all born with the survival instincts. And it's important that we really make sure that we hone into them, listening to ourselves. And for, you know, younger kids, some people call it an uh-oh feeling, and they're not too sure why they're feeling that way. And that's when we have to say, when you feel that way or you're not too sure, that's when you come to us as the trusted adult. And also, if you're experiencing it as an adult or a youth, that's when you need to go, why is, you know, my spidey senses going off, or I'm not feeling safe, or I'm unsure. That's when you are telling you something doesn't sit right. That's when you do your own little investigation, whether it's in person or it's something online. Take a second. And if you're not too sure, ask somebody you trust that is looking out for you and your well-being. Right. And this could be whether it's you're doing online shopping and all of a sudden you're like, oh my, that deal looks so great, but maybe it sounds too good to be true, or it doesn't look like a secured site. Check it out, put it in Google, see what else is out there. Again, just trusting what you are feeling. Another thing we're reminding people about as well is your rights, knowing that each and every one of us online, in person, and virtually have human rights, right? We have that right to feel safe and to be respected. There's a whole bunch of other ones, but that's a whole other topic. But it's important that our kids know this too. You know, it's important that they understand they have that right to say yes, they have that right to say no. Now, youth and kids listening, that doesn't mean you say no to, you know, a household chore or doing your homework. But if somebody is asking you to do something online or in person, and you have that this doesn't feel safe feeling, or that uh-oh feeling, that's when you say no. But we also have to remember sometimes it's hard to speak up. That's where we work together as a team to help each other out, whether it's in person or online. And always know that there is help out there, whether it's in person, your trusted adults, online, you've got Kids Help Phone or cybertip.ca, resources that I will provide after. But just know we all have that right to feel safe and respected. I had mentioned that word trusted adult as well. These are a few examples. To the trusted adults listening, have conversations with your, the kids in your life. Who else could you actually say, if I'm not home or I'm not available at this time, here are other people you can go to. If it's at school, a teacher that they feel comfortable with, that you also feel comfortable with, whether it's a grandparent, aunt, uncle, a neighbor that you know and trust. And the key is that your child feels comfortable with, and more importantly, that trusted adult has that child's physical and mental well-being, and that safety is their priority, full stop. With technology in our home, it's something we all have and we have to be aware of. We have to be aware that a cell phone, when we provide it to our a youth, depending on what age you choose. Some people ask me, and I said, at the end of the day, it ultimately is your decision, but you should be aware, does your child understand the responsibilities? Are they mature enough to know not to pick up, a phone number that they don't recognize, but also to have a conversation. If you are giving, your child a device that connects up to the internet, or has data, right? Knowing that you have a contract with them, a verbal contract saying, I need to know your passwords. I can check in with your phone at any time, because again, it's not the fact that you don't trust your children. It's the fact that you don't trust what you don't know and you don't see. That's the other reason why, as you can see with this picture here, you should be having your devices in areas where you can hear what's going on, and you can take a peek over the shoulder to see what games or what texts are happening. And that's super important. And sometimes what people forget is you think, oh, that's fine. It's they're safe. They're in their room. They're at home. But when you open up the doors to the internet, you really don't know what is happening. And that's the important part of every so often having a peek over the shoulder, checking even with your child to scroll through their devices to make sure it's safe. Because what they may think is cool, they actually might not realize could be a scam or somebody trying to trick them, right? This is from the Canadian Centre of Child Protection, which is a great resource. The 3 C's pretty much with online safety. It's knowing the content, the contact, and the conduct. Is it appropriate? Is it safe? If a child asks about a game or an app or a social media site or platform, that's for you to say, okay, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to look into it. And actually, the Center of Child Protection actually has a cyber tip alert that you can sign up for, and they will send you various alerts on things that you could be aware of, to make sure you're looking out for your child's safety. Another thing too is being mindful of the rules, why they exist. We as humans, we make mistakes because that's what we do sometimes. But the difference is learning and owning from those mistakes, but we also have rules and laws in place to ensure everybody's safety. And the same thing applies in person as it does online. And I think sometimes people forget that. And an important part to remind everybody too, when it's online, posted over the internet in that cyber sea, delete is never deleted, right? And I think that's something that sometimes gets forgotten, and it needs to be a reminder. And that's where the digital citizen part comes in. In real time, we're trying to be our best professional, respectful person. Same goes online. some people forget when they're online, they think they can, hide from who they are by having a different name. But the reality is, if you are posting from that same IP address, which is like an online address, then it's important to understand that you can be tracked or located if it's required. If you want to make sure you're safe, you keep your location settings off. But when it comes to a public or personal safety issue, we, being police and security, can actually do legal documents that could actually locate where that post or text is coming from in the matter of safety. So as you can see here, and I'm sure some of the kids are reacting to some of these icons here, a lot of people don't realize that Instagram, Snapchat, even Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, they all have age limits as well. For Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, they actually put the age of 13 and over for users. Now, the reality is most students that I talk to in the schools, they've had these platforms since grade 4. And that's where we as caring adults have to come in and check in. Some parents say, oh, I share a social media platform like Snapchat with my son or daughter so I can see what's happening. That's up to you in your home. Just make sure you're on top of it, but also make sure, is it appropriate and is it age appropriate? You can also have parental controls, much like YouTube has a kids channel, right? And even with games, double check, is it appropriate for your kids to be playing? Also know who they are online playing with, right? You should actually physically know who they are online with, as well as not just a random name because they play with, John all the time. Do you actually know John? Because we forget, we can pretend to be a different age online, right? So if they are engaging in games online, make sure that you're checking in to see who they are playing with, asking those questions. Are their cameras on or off? If they're in a public site, have them turn their camera off. They can mute and block the chats, and be mindful in those gaming chats too, what words are being used. Because again, delete is never deleted, and somebody can actually take a picture or a screenshot of those chats, right? So with this here, this is called Snap Map. Some of you may be familiar with it, and it's important to know too that the location is on. So this is actually a screenshot of an old text that I received from my niece when she was traveling. The aunt in me is thrilled that she's safe, but the cop in me is like, oh, geez, did you just share your location with the entire world? Because technology is so advanced that if really somebody wanted to locate where she was staying, they could literally go right to the place of the hotel where she was at. So again, when you're sharing location, for all the youth out there, it should be off. The only person you should be sharing a location with is your trusted adult, and having a conversation. If you're meeting with a friend, temporarily share that location till you meet your friend, then turn it off, right? Same thing with free Wi-Fi. Sometimes we forget because it's free. It's awesome because it's free. But at the same time too, when we're connected to free Wi-Fi, we forget that we're literally putting out in that cyber cloud everything we're saying, texting, posting, right? You see the icon of Spider-Man just came up. Even when you're online, I want you to go with your gut, listen to your spidey senses. And with the free Wi-Fi, same applies. Look around. This is just a random picture of an example of whether it's Tim Hortons or Starbucks. But in this space, majority of people are just literally talking, communicating, working. Sadly, there are a few people that are a little bit more tech savvy, and they could be even connected in the parking lot and looking through that cloud that exists up here and gathering information that you might not even realize. It's like the banks. They say, do not do your banking on a free Wi-Fi, right? Because you're pretty much exposing all of that personal information. Now, some people will say, oh, I have a VPN, which is like a firewall. That's great. But even still, I want you to think, I want you to trust your gut. Check your surroundings. If it's not safe to do something there, then don't try to, take a chance where it could mean your safety or your personal information is out there and you're not realizing somebody's capturing it. The same thing with your fingerprint versus your digital footprint, right? So your fingerprint, as you can see here, heck, you can even take a look at it. It is unique to you and to you only. Identical twins have identical DNA. It's extremely rare that they share the same fingerprint, right? And that's pretty impressive. The same thing, though, goes with your digital footprint. And some people are like, what is a digital footprint? Well, that is actually the first time you connected to the internet, you made an imprint online, and that follows you, much like your fingerprint, for life. So here is the tricky part where some people say, oh man, that's like a forever. Well, it is, but that's where you take a deep breath, because it's a forever, but it also shows, what? Growth. It also shows, what you were playing when you were a kid. If you've made a mistake, which unfortunately sometimes that we do as human beings, it also shows that you've corrected it and you've grown and you've moved on from it. But people really need to understand delete is not deleted. And that's where sometimes people forget, right? And that's the important part of having these conversations. It's like, how many of us have Googled our names before? And you've realized, oh, I have a lot of people who have the same name as me. That's fair. Sometimes it's kind of cool. Unfortunately for others, they may say, oh, I see this and I was tagged in a video, or actually my name's out there on the internet, and that's not true. It's false information. That's where it's important to every so often take a look. Trusted adults, depending on the age of, your youth or your kids, that's something you should do. And if it's out there on the internet and I can see it, so can everybody else, which means future employers, schools, teams, us as police officers. And it may also hinder what we call like that ripple effect. It may have, maybe you're trying out for a team or you've applied for a job, and let's get real, they look at an application. The first thing they're probably going to do too is put your name in Google and see how do they represent themselves online. So if you represent yourself well online, I'm sure you would do the same in person. And that's where some people mess up, right? Again, human, I'm not trying to throw shade or be judgy, but that's where we all need to think, right? Not just our youth, us as adults too. It's that ripple effect. And I use the example of a job because for some people, whether it's part-time or full-time, that employer wants to hire you and know that you're going to represent their company well, much like you do in person and equally as online. And that's important to do. But at the end of the day too, if something happens, you've made a mistake, take a breath, see how you can fix it and show growth, right? And it's important to remember that too. We also have to remember about the digital stressors. We growing up, for myself in particular, didn't grow up with cell phones or a lot of video games. Our children are. And we also have to understand their brains, their frontal lobe is still under construction. So that also means they want immediate gratification and they don't always understand when we say, take a break, stop. How many of you have actually asked your child to put their phone down at dinner or to have a conversation face to face without anything digital? You might have got a reaction like, are you kidding me? It's like you're ripping my heart out by asking me to put down my phone. And we forget when we ask that of them, which we are allowed to do, of course, you also are disconnecting them from a lot of their social mediums, right? And that's important to remember. It's also equally important to show our kids of varying ages, that it's okay to disconnect, having that digital diet, take a break, go outside, play. You do not need the internet all the time, right? And it's also mindful as well to understand what their baseline is. What is their typical behavior? And if you're noticing some variance, whether, you know, they're sad one day or extremely happy, but it's very, it's varying from their usual everyday pattern, that's when we as trusted adults also have to connect. And youth, that same goes for you, right? If you're feeling or seeing something online that may stress you out or upset you, have that conversation. Ask. If you don't know what to do, it's okay to say, I don't know what to do. I need some help here. And adults listening too, it's okay not to know, but it's good to know there's resources out there, whether it's through the school, your community, Kids Help Phone, cybertip.ca. Together as a team, it's important that we work together. I'm going to show you some images here of these people. And now normally I would ask, does anybody recognize these people? And if you did, or even if you didn't, would you go up to them if you saw them on the street and say, hey, how's it going? Here's my email. Here's a picture of myself. And you know what? I'll text you later. Majority of the time, people will be like, that sounds not safe. And of course, I wouldn't do that. That's ridiculous. But then I ask a lot of people, who recognizes this person? Majority of the time, we all know, even the younger kids know who this person is. So I will tell you who these people are. So that is Jack Dorsey, who created Twitter, and Twitter's now owned by Elon Musk. You've got Evan and Bobby, who created Snapchat, Mike and Kevin, who created Instagram. And then you have Zhang Yiming, who created TikTok. And then you have Mark Zuckerberg, AKA Meta, the creator of Facebook, owner of Instagram. And then I say, so did we give these people some information of ours? We can all readily say, yeah, we did. I have their social media platforms. Now, this is where we have to take a second and we have to say, what information did I give these people? I always tell people, use an email specifically for online, not your work or your school email. And you should basically be giving them a bare minimum of information. And some people say, are you telling me to lie? I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you to be safe. At no point do any of these individuals say to you, we're secured sites. They pretty much tell you they're not. In that tiny, long legal document that basically says, hey, whatever information you give us, including your pictures, depending on your age, I'm going to sell. That's why all of these individuals here are multi-billionaires, right? And this is why it's important to make sure we keep it to a bare minimum if we are using these platforms to communicate, right? What email am I using? I don't need to put my phone number up there. The people who are in my life know how to call me and contact me. I don't have to put identifiers like my school unless you want to, but when it comes to your kids or youth, do not put those identifiers in there. That's considered personal information, right? And we don't want to give anybody else too much information that they could use. Again, it's a safety issue. And I also say too, if you're not too sure, every so often, go into the settings. And I will give you some resources where you can actually go into the settings and check. Make sure your settings are on private, not public. If you use social media for work, that's one thing. You should be trained on how to use it for work and how to be safe on that platform. But if it's for personal use, have it on privacy only, location off. Know who is following you and also who are you following. A lot of people will brag about, oh, I have so many followers. My thing is, do you actually know these people? Just because it's a famous person doesn't mean it's actually that famous person's account, right? And also if somebody requests to follow you, you can actually just ignore it or decline. And if somebody is being negative, you can actually mute or block them, much like you can in a gaming chat as well. And I don't know if you can see this over here, but Echo and Siri and Alexa and all these devices, I think we're noticing now more as well, how attuned they are and how much they are listening to our conversations, as well as when we Google. If we're Googling online, just say, I was looking at shoes, and then I go on my Instagram account, or even I say it close to Echo or Alexa, all of a sudden if I open up the computer and go into one of my accounts, I now have ads for shoes. Is it a coincidence? I think we all know it's not. It's the networking part, and that's how quickly the internet works. That's why we need to be mindful and keeping information to a minimum and ensuring it's a secured site. I ask people here just to take a look at this picture and think, okay, we've all probably taken a selfie or a family photo, but at what point did this person think sharing all of this information was okay? I don't think she meant to do this. She's probably like, oh, my work, it's so busy. But really, when you look at all of this, she's sharing where she works, a confidential file, driver's license with somebody else's information on there. So at no point did she think to look in her background or in her setting to say, what am I sharing that might actually cause a security issue and isn't safe, right? So next time you're going to do a selfie or take a family photo, do a couple of things. Even before you FaceTime or go on video, like I did it too. I checked my background. Am I oversharing, right? I might have shared phone numbers that nobody else really wanted me to share. And also this information here, people can create a whole other identity with this poor guy's info. She could actually suffer consequences at work, right? Because she's not just representing herself here, she's representing her workplace. So again, being mindful and also making sure, is it appropriate? Is it okay to post? Another thing too with, the youth and the kids out there, always check in with your trusted adult before you were to post anything. You want to make sure it's safe and it's appropriate. And if you don't need to share it, then just don't, right? A safety tip that I've been reminded too by some of my tech friends is they say, before you post anything online, take a screenshot of that post. And adults who might not know, you can ask your youth in your life too. So a screenshot could be the two sides of your phone, pushing the buttons there, or there's something on your computer, you can press it and it saves it. So by taking a picture, a screenshot, post the screenshot. That does two things. One, it takes out what's called geocoding, which is actually the location which is embedded in your photo. And you can post that, so that eliminates the location. And then if somebody wanted to take and copy your photo by posting the screenshot, it makes it difficult to get a clear picture, right? And at the end of the day, you want to keep yourself and more importantly, your kids safe. So always check in, right? Another thing too that we've been talking to younger people about as well is about people who can be deceiving or tricky, who might say, I'm sure people who are listening to the news, we're hearing all about people who are trying to fraud or extort money, by saying, hey, I'm lost, or I've got a sick person here, can you send me money? They're sort of pulling on people's heartstrings. And also we have to be mindful of our kids, right? In some of these games, people will actually offer free gift cards, or they will say, hey, I saw what you put in the chat. I'm sure your mom or dad or your trusted adult wouldn't want to hear that. So I'm going to tell you, you have to send me another gift card, or I'm going to expose or tell on you. Right. And that's a form of a threat or extorting. And we have to be aware of making sure we let our kids know. It's not that, you know, I want to be able to keep you safe. I'm not going to be there all the time, but you need to know if that ever happens, you have to come to me right away. And also it's important to get the username. Take that screenshot or a picture of that username or that site. And then that can be reported, whether it's to the site or actually to us through or cybertip.ca. And this is where we talk about the phishing, not the sport of fishing. That's a great sport. I'm talking about what some people do, the people who I would call tricky people, who actually, it's not a gender or age specific thing. It's just people who literally will sit and fish on the internet to try and get information. And it's getting information out of the cyber sea. So it could be for your names, photos, banking information, pictures that can be used without you knowing. And sometimes how they try and lure the bait, and we're the fish here. So the bait they might use to entice people to get information could be attention, whether it's a thumbs up or, hey, good job, or, oh my gosh, you look amazing in that photo, right? And it could also be, like I was talking about, gift cards. And we had one case of a grade 6 student who was playing Fortnite. And
just for everybody connecting and continuing on our Milan flight, Montreal-Milan, all passengers will have to deplane in Montreal.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think
all your personal belongings with you.
Enjoy your flight.
In Montreal,
but also know,
it will be the same
here, let
aircraft.
me see here. Oops.
You just need to load.
I don't. Hopefully, is that me?
For them a month flight.
Or no? Okay.
Mesdames et messieurs, pour l'information des passagers.
Oh, I think that's somebody else. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. So just being mindful too of, you know, what information we're putting out there, and knowing too that if it's not safe and your sort of spidey senses are going off, definitely speak up and say something, right? And also, like I was saying, with that conversation with the student with the Fortnite, what had happened was somebody offered him a gift card and said, that's a great game. I'm going to send you a gift card so you can use it on this game. Of course, grade 6 student, like, you know, 10, 11 years old, is like, this is awesome. Yeah. In the chat, he's like, yeah, send me the gift card. The other player is like, well, hold on. You got to give me your name. You got to give me your address. That's personal information, which obviously is not safe. It's not a secured site. So what they did instead is the kid goes, oh, I can't give that to you. And the person who was luring that, you know, the student in says, do you have a PayPal? And he goes, I don't have a PayPal, but my dad does. So he gave the PayPal account. And unfortunately, what has happened is he didn't get the gift card. That gamer suddenly disappeared. But what he did do was he told his dad and was able to get the username and reported it. But again, just being mindful that this stuff does happen and we have to do our best to stay on top of it. And this is where we have to ensure we're protecting things like our privacy, right? Ensuring that we have a password that we don't share with our friends and, you know, kids and youth who are listening. Your password is for you and your trusted adult only. If your best friends or friends say, hey, let's share passwords, say no, because then it's not a password anymore, right? And it's important to understand a true friend will respect that as well. And also knowing the difference between a secured site and a not secured site. Now, I know some people are getting their graphics really perfected. So if you're still not too sure, right, if it's got the padlock like down here, this example, or the HTTPS, understand that, take a second and say, you know what, I'm going to put this in Google and see if this is actually a secured site. If it's not, then don't get any information. Don't put information in there, right? Every so often, change your passwords, check into them, check your privacy settings, ensure it's still on private and not public. And if it looks or sounds too good to be true, most likely it probably is. And here is just an example of a Snapchat help center, where if you're not too sure how to make to check your friends or to ensure it's on privacy only, it will take you through step by step. And that's an important thing to remember too. And TikTok has the same, so does Instagram, so does Facebook, so does Twitter. And we, society, have sort of said to these platforms, hey, you need to make sure you're keeping everybody safe as well. So they're trying to do their part, but we also need to do our part and report, right? And it's important that if somebody is being negative, or there's, you know, threats or hate speech, or if you see a video or a picture, just because you don't know them doesn't mean you can't help that person. And you could capture, you know, that link or ID and report it, whether it's through that site. If it's obviously a personal safety thing, you would put it, if you don't want to be known, put it in Crime Stoppers, or you can contact your, you know, your police division if it's not emergency, 808-2222, right? So again, these are just things you can know and get to understand. Sit down with your kids one night and go through it. Ask them. I had to do that when TikTok first came out. My best information is usually from the kids in my life as well. So, and again, it's an open forum for communication and understanding the safety of each other. What happens sometimes too is people will, you know, we had it up to here, especially since we've all been doing the virtual thing for so long. Now stuff is opening up. And also being mindful, we don't go to the internet or blogging or texting or posting when we're angry. This is where we need to be that mindful setting of knowing how to calm ourselves down. And as we all know, there's an app for that, but understanding what our limits are. And also remembering, once you put it out there and you click send or post, that's there and that's up there, and it can't just be easily deleted. You can correct, own, and apologize for it. But how about we take a step back and be preventative and just take a second to breathe? That's why I tell people too, when you see stuff online and you're upset about it and you want to engage in a, you know, whether it's you disagree with somebody online, take a second. Remember, there's people out there casting their line, and sometimes they're using debates to try and reel you in and get information. So don't take the bait, right? And also understand there's places that are safer to vent than some, you know, comments on YouTube or various chats. Like I always say to, you know, kids and the youth, you wouldn't go up to somebody you didn't know on the street and ask them personal information. The same goes with the chat room, right? And believe it or not, a lot of things that we're hearing too, youth are going into these random chat rooms and they're just having conversations. And again, we can't see or understand who might be there. So that's also our job, is to engage and check the history, have a conversation. Understand too, if they do need a place to go, have safe resources. Like I've said it before, there's Kids Help Phone, there's cybertip.ca. In person, it should be you or another trusted adult that they can go to as well. And at the end of the day, it's my cheesy mom thing too, but we are all unique and amazing, and we have that right to be respected, and it should be celebrated. And sometimes when you see, whether it's in person or online, if people are being judgmental, well, then we need to stop. We need to disengage. We also need to know that the people who truly care about us celebrate us for who we are. Right. And that's important messaging throughout, and especially when you're younger, and understand too that you have a voice. If you do see a negative picture or video as well, whether it's of yourself or somebody else that you may know, these are some resources that you can go to. Let somebody know. Also be mindful that you might see a picture of somebody who didn't want it to be posted, but felt too scared or was threatened. And that's why it's up there. So by you reporting it, you might actually helping somebody else, you know, take that picture down, or have police or another community involved to help that person who might be in need. And that's the same thing when we talk about, I think somebody needs to be muted, I'm sorry, with the bystander, right? That's the same thing as community, as resources. We can help each other out. Being that team, we might not be able to be in the moment at that time, but we can actually be there for them as a support, right? A lot of times we hear our kids talk about what happened in school and don't always assume it's somebody else's problem or it's the school's problem. That's also important for us to get involved too. And I'm going to wrap it up in a second too, but I actually want everybody to know, just to think, take that second. We don't always have to know what to do at that moment, but it's important to think about that bigger picture, whether in real time or on, you know, online. Think, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And these are some of the resources I was talking about, and there is some great tip sheets that I will send on, and there is one with TikTok, and you can sit with your child and go over some of the stuff, and there's some great interactive sites that you can talk about and having the conversation. I do appreciate your time. I see there's a lot of things in the chat, so if you do have any questions, please let me know. And if you are on your mic, if you could mute your mic, that would be great. And thank you very much for your time. And I'm going to stop my share right now and just see if there are any questions. And here's my email if you do have any questions. Again, feel free. If I do not have the answer, I will definitely find out and ask around to get you the correct answer. And it is, at the end of the day, all about the teamwork, because we all want to do our part, especially when it comes to our kids, to keep each other safe. So thank you. Okay, should I check in the chat? Are there any questions?
Yes, please. I have a question. For this recording, is it possible for parents to get the records, and it will help us to be able to have a good plan on the, directing our kids? Then all you said are fantastic, good, but it's hard to pack everything, but we need to, implement it on our kids. Is it possible, please?
Yes, we would actually have the recording on our YouTube channel, so you guys would have
What
access
is it?
to that.
So we can access it on the YouTube?
Yes, it would be on the YouTube.
Can we get the link, please?
Yes, I will definitely send it to everybody who has sent me their email down below in the chat.
Okay, I'll send mine.
And you know what, Sakita, too, I will send you, there's another link as well. And I did a similar talk with the school boards as well. So I will try and locate that link as well, because then you can hear it from the school perspective, because they are also, wanting to ensure that the messaging, much like you at home, is the same at school. It's about ensuring that their kids are safe, they understand, right? That it's important that we all do our part to ensure the safety of the kids. And if for some reason there's an issue or an incident takes place, because mistakes happen, how best to deal with it, right? In a safe and obviously manner that they can learn and grow, right? So any other questions or comments and feedback, please feel free to email me as well. If you would like to know more, you would have preferred something else, because it's all about me learning too to get messaging out there. So I do appreciate all of your time.
I want to go ahead. If there's any questions, please put them in the chat below so we can ask Megan. We do have a question, Megan.
Sure.
Somebody asked, what is your team doing to minimize fraud?
What is our team doing to minimize fraud? I think there are some, you know what? It's about reporting and education. So this is the key, right? What we're doing right now too, it's about being mindful. Like if you go on the Toronto Police website, there is a safety page. I'll try and find the exact link. We do each division, and we here at the Community Partnership and Engagement Unit have a crime prevention officer, right? So there is information out there. And the important part is actually reporting. Some people are too embarrassed to say anything because they feel like, oh, how could I fall for that scam? But at the end of the day, too, we need to know so that we can investigate and do our part to, catch these individuals who are taking advantage of, the vulnerabilities of good people. Right? So it's about using, like I said, using your instincts, trusting your spidey senses. Do not give out personal information on not secured sites. Heck, even when you go shopping, how many times does the cashier ask you for your phone number or your email? Right? You can actually just say no. Or have an email specifically for online shopping, or also phone calls. How many of you have gotten those calls and they say you're going to be arrested because you didn't pay your taxes, or this is the police calling if you don't pay us? And guess what? Police don't call and ask for monetary stuff. So again, it's questioning, saying, hey, you know what? I don't recognize that number. I'm going to let it go to voicemail, or they can text me. If somebody knows me and knows how to get a hold of me, that's one thing. But if you have that suspicion going, I don't recognize that, it doesn't make sense, then don't answer it. Trust your gut. While I was presenting here right now, I probably got about 4 different texts telling me that I have a monetary reward, which I know is fake, which would be great, but I know it's not true. And also a phone call from a number I don't recognize from some other place. And sadly, it's just about trusting who you are. And also, if for some reason something had happened, know to report it. Because that's the only way we get to understand, right, how it's happening, why it's happening, and also get involved and catch the people who are doing it. I hope that gives you, I know that's a long-winded answer, but at the end of the day, that's what it's about. But we do have tips online, like right now, especially holiday season, everybody's shopping. Make sure your phones are close to you. Don't bring out a lot of money when you're paying. Again, with credit cards or even gift cards, right? Check the gift card, make sure there's, it's safe, it's legitimate, right? Checking what's out there, checking your receipts. Any other questions? Hopefully that answered your question a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's just knowing, going with your gut.
Somebody had asked if you can please share your email address again.
So sorry, did somebody ask
For your email
a question?
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody's asking for you to share your email address.
My email address? Absolutely. Yes. And please feel free to email me. Like I said, if I don't have the answer, I will definitely find out. Okay, and I work with a whole team. Oh, I see somebody's hand is up.
I just wanted to ask, what do we do when, our sibling is, getting cyberbullied? Who do we contact? What do we do?
Right, and I'm sorry about that. And you, as the older person as well, definitely tell somebody, right? So take screenshots about what's happening. Don't engage with that person online. take what I call, like I said, a screenshot. Some people even say, oh, I don't want to use my phone. So use a different device, take pictures of it, right? And then you can report it, right? If it's at the school, let the school know if that person is aware of who the bully is. Remember, under the Education Act, there is zero tolerance for any form of harassment or bullying, and that should be always the way. If it's severe to the point where, you know what, it's causing you grief and stress and to be nervous and scared, it's a criminal offense, right? You can actually contact police. If it's not an emergency, you can call 416-808-2222. Okay, and we do have reports that do go in for people who have been bullying in person as well as on the internet. We don't call it bullying under the criminal code, it's called harassment, right? And at the end of the day, like I talked about too, each and every person should feel safe and respected and not being torn down. And it's hard as a sibling, I'm sure too, but you're being there for your sibling. And I think that's awesome. And it's important to know that sometimes when you have, you know, when you're being bullied, you've got two people who are in crisis. You as the victim who's being bullied, and actually the person who's doing the bullying, because bullying is a learned behavior. So we being police or even the school or your trusted adults, they also want to know, why is this person doing this, right? So by reporting it, you're actually helping the person who's being bullied and also hopefully helping that person and stopping that behavior, right? Does that answer your question? And sometimes it can be as easy as, you know, having conversations, and or sometimes if it continues, it could actually lead to whether it's at school, a detention, a suspension. If it's a criminal offense, depending on the age of that person, that could potentially lead to criminal charges, right? And sometimes I forget, like people forget, there's a Youth Criminal Justice Act. So between the ages of 12 to 17, somebody could be charged. Now, that being said, we as police, we also understand people are young, we make mistakes. So we have a diversion program where we work with the families, the schools, the community to try and correct that behavior as well. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, officer.
Yes.
Yes,
and
thank
report
you.
it to the site. Instagram, gaming, Snapchat. If somebody is bullying from a specific username too, they record that username and they will block or delete or mute it. The difference is sometimes the person will get savvy and say, oh, create another name. But what that person forgets is they're basically posting from the same IP address or location. And another thing before I forget, because I'm looking at myself on camera too, even remember after a game or if you're online or FaceTiming, remember to shut your camera off, shut your audio off. And if you're FaceTiming, whether it's with a relative or a friend, be mindful too that no friend or person who cares about you will ever ask you to do something that you would be uncomfortable with. Right. And also understand sometimes people say, oh, I'm not filming you. It's just you and I here. But some people may have a different device where you can't see. So always being mindful. And that's why I always say, make sure everything is shut down. Some people will even cover their camera after, mute their audio, and power off completely. Trusted adults listening, make sure your kids do that, because believe it or not, there's links they may click on and you might not realize that they're still recording and they might not even realize it. So that's why I always double check, shut it off, cover it up. If you don't have a fancy lid, use a Band-Aid or tape, right? With a, you know, a loonie on it, and cover your camera and check your audio and make sure it's off. Any other questions? Sorry, as you can tell, I talk a lot, so. Any other questions? Or if somebody else has a tip and wants to share?
The question that was, I believe, what are you doing to address fake news? I'm guessing that's information that they're referring to?
Oh, did somebody ask a question? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. I see.
No, if not, that's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. What are you doing to address fake news? That was a question in the chat.
Okay, sorry. There was a question in the chat. You cut out a little bit there.
Yes, there's a question in the chat that states, what are you doing to address fake news?
What are you doing to address fake news? I think that's not just a police problem. That's an everybody problem. I think that's where you have to be mindful and sort of sift through, right? Checking your facts, right? Like fact checks, right? If it's too good to be true, then most likely it is. And if you kind of go, right, that doesn't sound right, or how do I know if that's true? That's when you can do, it's almost like your own little investigation, whether you check it in the Google or if it's related to somebody you know, ask the questions, right? If it is something that somebody has made up and you know for a fact it's not true, and it could be damaging to that person's reputation, right? Report it to the site. If it's really bad and it's causing that person's a hindrance in their future, whether it's a job or, hurting them in their position or profession, or it's causing them grief in their everyday life psychologically, report it, right? It's important to understand that too. But what we're doing with fake news, that's a huge, it's not just a police problem, it's an everybody problem. We have to make sure we check our facts before we say it. It's like gossip, right? When people say certain things and what we hear it's like broken telephone. Oh, I heard this one thing. And same applies online. If we're not 100%, don't be repeating it. And some people, like we talk about fishing, some people say they caught a fish this big and it's only this big. Check your facts, look into it. Much like photos or information that you receive online, if you're not too sure and you've got that gut feeling and something's like, it doesn't feel right, look more into it. And if you don't know what to do, ask the source, or if you think it's a threat or a personal safety issue, that's when you can involve police. And hopefully that answered that question. It's a really, it's a big question to answer, but that's what we're doing in regards to that. Again, it's a team effort too, right? It has to be reported. Sometimes people forget. They'll just assume, oh, I won't do it, somebody else will. I'd rather get more than one. I'd rather get like 5 reports as opposed to 0, right? And that's where the community comes into play and being that team effort too, whether it's in your neighborhood or your school, right? That's all part of it. Any other questions or comments, or anybody have any other tips that they may want to share? And I'll share this since, I'll share this on the, let's see. Oh, that's okay. You don't have to, if you don't have to enable me again, but I will share, like I said, those resources. Please definitely check out the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. They have incredible resources that we actually use here at Toronto Police, specifically our Child Exploitation Unit and our Child Youth Advocacy Center, as well as Kids Help Phone, cybertip.ca, Need Help Now. Again, if you're not tech savvy, hey, as a parent, as a trusted adult and caregiver, I also always checking in every so often, because we don't always know everything, and it's okay not to know, but what we have to do is ask the questions, right? And making sure we are checking in. And for the kids and youth that are listening, sometimes people will say, oh, I don't want to say anything because I'll get my phone taken away, or, mom or dad or aunt or uncle may get upset with me. Be mindful. Sometimes that frustration that you may take as being upset It's actually frustration from the part of, I wish I was there to protect you, right? And, you know, and trusted adults listening too, we also have to be mindful as well. We were that age once, and we have to think about how can we make this a teachable moment and learn from it and be safe. Any other questions or comments?
I can't believe this right now.
Okay.
We can hear you.
See, online, you just never know. That's why it's important to, you know, whether to you're on video or audio, always check. Anything else, Sigida, anything else you may think of?
Does anybody have any more questions for Police Constable Megan? All right. Okay.
It's okay.
We will have this recorded and put on our YouTube. So if you guys want to go back and refresh your memory, you guys can do so. And if you guys want to share it to your friends, this is very important information that can benefit anybody. So go ahead and do that charity work and spread that knowledge to everybody else. I want to thank you, Police Constable Megan, for joining us today and giving us all that useful information. I hope we can all be online safe and watch our surroundings and be aware of what we're doing online. I know this concept is not very known to everybody, or you guys don't comprehend it that well, but I'm sure you guys got some useful tips from this workshop. Yeah, thank you, Officer Megan. I hope we can keep in touch and maybe do something else
Absolutely.
later on in the future.
Yep. And even if you want, like the crime prevent, I have a lot of friends wearing the same outfit as me. They have the same goal to keep everybody safe. So we can definitely do that. And I will send you those resources so you can take, you know, the step by step and really learn how to navigate sometimes those, you know, those settings that can sound confusing at times. Right. It's all about helping each other out and spreading the word. So I love how you said that too. It's about helping each other out.
Yes. And as far as the gift cards, guys, if you guys did put your email in the chat, then I do have it recorded. And you guys can come by our office, and that's at 2300 Shepherd Avenue West. And that's Suite LL17. You guys, your name would be at the front, and you guys can come and pick it up. If you guys are unable to come, because I know everybody's working and not everybody has the same schedule, if one person that you know is coming by, they can definitely have your email address, and we can give it to them on your behalf. But just please let us know if that's the case. And also, if you guys enjoyed this workshop, we would really appreciate you guys to go on our Google reviews and leave a review so that we are accessible to anybody that searches up anything that has to do with community and referral, so we can help everybody else. I will definitely link the Google review down for you guys. All right, Megan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Be safe.
Yes.
Thank you, Megan. It was very good information. Bye.